Greetings, Retro Zoltan here. Sometimes it's really hard making these videos, and my biggest hurdle this time was to stop playing games on this thing and create what you're watching right now. I like this thing, but will you? Let's find out together. Presenting the Anbernic RG405M, something that I'm positive is going to give me a run for my money. It's one of the latest from Anbernic, promising things that I found hard to ignore. Anbernic promises this is able to play Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, Nintendo Wii. Is this real life? Now, before you think I'm only going to say positive stuff, no one gave me this. I did buy it, and I do have a very serious concern that I'll talk about near the end. I'm not sure when it happened or how it's so, but many handhelds are now embracing the Android operating system. It didn't make much sense to me when it first happened, and I admit I avoided it like the plague. Perhaps it was my not-so-great experience with the portable Pandora's box I looked at last year. But with Android, it seems we can get even more out of our tiny handhelds, and have a ton of more options. More than what average people may know what to do with. So let's explore the Anbernic RG405M, its operating system, and why this may be one of the best handhelds I've played in some time. Taking a first look at the Anbernic RG405M, it looks impressive. It screams build quality, and after just recently playing around with the RG351MP, an older design, you can tell things have been slightly modified for improvement. One of the things I really like is how the edges on the sides are more rounded off now. It feels really good when you're holding it, and the placement of everything for the most part works for me. So I'm excited to start playing games on this thing. This time, you can only buy the Anbernic RG405M in two colors. A gray, which I swear is green, and an impressive black one. I try not to have regrets, but the black one looks really sharp. On the front sports two analog sticks, the placement mimicking the Nintendo Switch in every way, and the analog controls might as well have come from the same inventory. They feel perfect, and inset deep to make this thing pocketable. Nothing wrong with that. The shiny ABXY buttons are marked with letters on the buttons themselves instead of the shell, something I'm a big fan of. And of course, they push perfectly. The D-pad feels amazing, and as usual for Anbernic, we're not going to have any issues here. If you like controls with that rubber membrane feel, you're going to be happy. Also on the front are start and select buttons that are next to each other, which is a change I wasn't expecting. This doesn't bother me too much. Just a bit of a surprise, I guess. I know other systems have this, so I'm guessing it's working for people. There's also a home or back button to probably help you out of certain menus since it's an Android. These buttons have a bit of an inlay which gives it a good look, as well as preventing accidental button pushes. Also on the front is a huge 640 by 480 IPS display. 4 inches to be exact. A nice change, and it's very appreciated. I can't wait to look at it when it's powered up. The top has what I can only imagine is a vent. The manual says nothing about this, but this is my guess anyway. Pretty impressive that this thing is powerful enough to need one. Anyway, it has a volume rocker switch, the Anbernic norm, a power switch, and triggers. The buttons again are inlaid a bit, giving it a really cool look that I appreciate. The triggers, however, are beside each other and not stacked, which I don't appreciate. Still, I'm guessing this was a design decision, since in all ways this feels like a system meant to be tossed into your pocket. Stacked triggers would just get in the way. The bottom sports dual stereo speakers, something I always appreciate seeing, an audio jack for headphones, and an SD slot only meant to pack this thing full of games. The Android operating system is built in, so custom firmware and that sort of thing is, well, not an easy SD swap out sort of thing, but more on that later. The back of these have nice rubbery grippy pads, which I feel is needed, especially with the aluminum cases. Nothing upsetting here. I'm really impressed. Internals for the Anbernic RG405M are the following. It has a Unisoc T618, something you'd normally see in a tablet, a Mali G52 graphics processing unit, 4 gigs of RAM, and a 4500 milliamp hour battery, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and a rumble motor. I'm certainly impressed. And just a quick moment on the battery, it certainly lasts. I was playing Nintendo 64 emulation for what must have been 5 hours, and there was still almost half the battery life left. Your battery life will vary depending on what you're playing, I'm sure. So let's turn this thing on and see what we're getting here. It certainly looks like a tablet. Moving around like you normally would on a system like this, you're going to find the emulators, and the ability to download more having a Google Play Store at your fingertips. But this is where my personal Android OS heartburn started. Do I really want to do all this? Some people would argue, yes, damn it, I do. But I've been doing a lot of reading, and the real elites are deleting all the emulators and downloading all new and different ones. Talk about commitment. I'm not against this by any means, but I at least like to start with something. And if I don't know anything and want to play Super Mario Kart for the Super Nintendo, which button do I push? Do I need to install anything? What about the games? Does it come with games? And where are they? Frustrating at first, since I knew there was a way to have a front end load up to handle all this, which makes things much simpler. But where is it? It's not turned on by default, and there appears to be no icon for it. So how? Videos I watched, things I read all say to open the Android front end, just simply click the RG icon. But where is it? Have I been in this box too long? What's wrong with me? But an accidental swipe of the screen finally made it happen. And for those of you who aren't me, know that it's simply just a swipe down. Twice. There it is. I completely forgot it's a touchscreen. This brings up multiple options, including, well, things you really are going to need, like turning on your wireless internet, Bluetooth, and of course the RG loader. So now let's use this option, which will automatically run on whenever you turn on your system. It's easy enough to turn it back off again when you're bored with it. With that frustrating confession out of the way, let's dig in hard. The system right out of the gate reads what games are on the SD card. Right away I can see what I have the ability to play, just like all the other handheld systems I have. Fair enough. Now I get it. The RG405M can play a huge variety of games, including the 8-bit games like NES and the 16-bit games like Sega Genesis, and the more complicated things like Dreamcast, PlayStation, and PSP with the greatest of ease. I had a hard time believing it when I was playing it. Have I just been too busy playing with the Miyoo Mini to see what's happening right in front of my face? You bet. Which brings me to Nintendo 64, a system I wanted to properly emulate since the beginning. If it can play the intro to Banjo-Kazooie without slowdown, it's all I need to know. And it does. And damn it, I have so many games to play now. Okay, now that that's out of my system, when I saw Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, Sega Saturn, I almost lost my mind about it. I had given up on Dreamcast completely, and PlayStation 2 really felt like a thing for the future. But here I was, playing these games, and only on a few occasions I could feel the RG405M struggle, but not by much. Sega Saturn had mixed results when playing the games included, but I'm guessing it may need a little tweaking. The ability to play Wii was not something I was even asking for, since, well, obviously it doesn't come with the required equipment, but there were some games where it didn't matter. The emulation, however, wasn't as glorious of an experience as I was expecting. Gamecube games, which you could play on the Wii, worked fine, but pure Wii games were sluggish, and trying to get the controls to work right was more of a chore than I wanted it to be. 2DS and 3DS emulation sort of has the same story. It's weird with two screens, but in the very least it can handle it without any slowdown. Something else I ran into was other front ends that I would argue are a better experience. I know Recalbox was a free option until recently, so I moved on until I discovered what I believe is called Daijishou, which made me fall in love with this system even deeper. It's free, and installing it just requires a little direction and patience. But the payout is better emulation, a ton of more options, and just amazing results. If you're interested in more, I'll provide links below. Another bonus of this running Android is that you can play, well, pretty much any Android game you can throw at this thing. You have the option to map screen taps with buttons and controls, which most of the time will work pretty well. Or you can stick to the screen and use it like a normal tablet, or just surf the internet if you feel like it. The Bluetooth option, as expected, works just fine. I had no issues pairing up and using a controller. And as far as sound, that worked perfectly also. No complaints here, none at all. Wireless, I didn't even have a huge use for until the system came around. And it worked well. Almost too well when my internet provider told me how well things were working. I feel slightly exposed. So with all the positive I say about this, what's wrong with the system? I do like Anbernic, but there are issues. The first thing is I really wish this thing had an HDMI out port. I know these systems can't have everything, but this would have been the icing on the cake. My guess is that in a few months, Anbernic will come out with another flavor of the 405 series that probably will. But I admit I find this trend irritating. Another concern is that after owning this for a few weeks, I noticed something I was dreading on seeing. I've heard of it happening on the Miyoo Mini Plus, but one day I noticed my screen was separating from the shell. Devastating. And I'm still trying to find out how it happened. I looked into it and a ton of people are having this problem also. So much so that Anbernic is sending out shells with entirely new screens as a remedy. How does this happen? The Anbernic RG405M really embraces the Android operating system, and as much as I had reservations, I believe you can please both the casual players as well as those that really want to customize an ultimate gaming system. Do I recommend this system? I do, but be aware this is going to run you about $170. Not an easy purchase if you're a casual gamer. Still, I have lots of people asking me what can play PlayStation 2. This one can, my friend. This one certainly can. I also want to thank Pigalope Crochet for yet another special custom case. This one fitting my loose-screened Anbernic RG405M perfectly. If you're interested in one, I'll provide a link below. And that's all I have to say about the RG405M. There are others already like this that can emulate just as much as this can, and even more, but I'm really digging this one. Special thanks to 7 Seasons Deep once again for letting me use the music at the end of this video. Thanks for watching, thanks for your support, and as always, I'll see you next time. Bye.